Well, I'm back in the Riot Games arena, no longer the LCS arena, previously the LCS arena,
Yes.
but now fully over, with John Needham, who is the president of esports at Riot, to talk about some of the industry trends as well as LCS stuff. Really appreciate you joining me here today.
Thanks for having me, Travis.
Yeah.
Here we are again.
Yes.
Let's go.
And just as a note, we weren't able to have, just because of scheduling, getting Nas in at the same time. You and I are going to talk about some stuff, and then if there are questions that are not answered here, I am going to do a conversation or have a conversation with Nas at MSI, so we'll have some more conversation there.
So I will punt the hard questions to Nas at MSI.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll talk more to her about specific LCS stuff. We got some stuff in here. But anyway, let's just get into it.
Yes.
So you dropped a big blog as this is about to be released.
I did.
Yes, talking about the state of the industry and where Riot is headed in esports. And I think, you referenced a little bit there, but how you feel. But if you had to sort of paint a picture of the esports industry right now, what do you think is going on?
Yeah, well, look, I think we've had about a little over a decade of building this esport now, and I feel really good about where we are, actually. I feel like the fundamentals of our business are really good. We have a very passionate young audience that's connected. And so that's been a really good part of it. I think we've learned a lot in our partnership models across all of our esports and how we partner and operate with the teams. And I think now it's just mostly about execution. And I wrote the blog because we're at an inflection point right now where there's a lot of worries about the economy. I think there are a lot of questions about the sustainability of esports as a business. And I think we have an exciting vision for how we view the business evolving. And I wanted to get that out there to people who may not be as close to the esports business as you and I. So generally, I am bullish on where we are and where we're going. And right now, I'm just really focused on how can we open up revenue streams for the teams and help them manage their costs so that we can really work hard on the sustainability aspect.
So I know you said you're bullish. Are you bullish short term as well? Because I think a lot of people are predicting, and it already seems like we're kind of seeing a little bit of consolidation, right? With the CLG NRG stuff recently, and I think some other examples of that. So what are your thoughts and what are your expectations on esports in the next, 2 to 3?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are trying to do a bunch of short term changes to our business, some of the requirements that we originally had in our partnership model. We're trying to loosen up if they're too expensive for the teams. We're also opening up new revenue streams, and I keep spreading out payments that teams owe us and trying to accelerate payments with our league revenue pool and things that we pay out to teams to try to get them through this challenging economic time that we're in right now. So I think short term, we have some challenges in the business. I'd say mid to long term, I am very excited.
Yeah. You mentioned in the blog the revenue streams you're trying to open specifically around digital stuff and these sort of fan packages. This, I think you referenced, is in some part a response to a revenue gap that traditional sports, they get the media rights deals. That's not really an opportunity anymore in esports. Do you think that those things can truly fill that gap? Because media rights deals are so massive in the traditional sports space, and so not having that, how confident are you can fill that with this new product that you're creating?
Yeah, I mean, we're very confident. Look, selling digital goods and services is what Riot does as a company. That is the core to our business. I think we have a good sense of what our fans value. And I think extending that knowledge out to esports is really exciting and will definitely more than fill the gap that traditional sports enjoy from broadcast licenses. And it gives us a lot more flexibility, frankly, in distributing our content and building fandom because we aren't so restricted by where we broadcast our content. So yes, digital revenues, we've already proven out in games, is very scalable and is a great business. And I think extending that out to esports is only logical. And we see a lot of indications that esports content is popular with our players. I mean, 3 of the top 6 skins sales-wise for League of Legends have been esports lines. With Valorant, last year around Champions, our skin pack, we sold over 42 million in revenues with that. Even at Lock-In, our kickoff tournament this year, we sold 20 million of knife packs around Lock-In. So this is content that we're very confident our players value. And we think that having a direct line where our players can support our teams has been something that we can do more with these new revenue streams as well.
Are there any challenges around how to split up the proceeds from this? Because I was thinking about the fact that there's Riot Esports, but you guys kind of operate as a bit of a separate business from across the street where they're making the game.
Yeah.
And so you were referencing, or in the blog you talk a little bit about like, hey, for Worlds we're looking to do stuff where like people can get packages where it's like some digital goods, and then there's team stuff in it, and then there's even some sponsor stuff in it. And I'm thinking like, all right, so some of that money has to go to sustaining esports as a business for Riot. Some of it has to go to the teams. Some of it has to go to the folks who are making it across the street and all those budgets that happen over there. Then you're also giving some money to the sponsors for including their things in it. And so I'm just thinking like, okay, you're cutting this pie so many different ways. How do you ensure that there's still enough to go around and make sure everybody is happy with that?
Yeah, it's really not that complicated. For Valorant, we split 50-50 on revenues. Really simple model, and we distribute the 50% out to teams. We don't do that in the VCT, but around our events we do that. With League, it is a bit more complicated. There are different splits with the teams because of all the stakeholders that are involved, but we're trying to simplify that as well and make it just super streamlined and easy to understand. But we're going to continue to put new digital products out in the market that we think our players and our fans will love. And we just hope to keep incrementing up the amounts of revenues that are being generated by esports.
So a lot of the revenue opportunity seems to exist around using the sort of watch platforms that you guys have right now. You said in the blog post, I think it was 40% of the Western audiences watches through the lolesports.com website or through the watch. I know it's kind of delineated how you guys have that set up behind the scenes, but obviously that means that when you are positioning a product in front of them, you can only hit 40% of that potential audience, right? Because that's where they are.
Yep.
Is the goal to move all of that audience over to a Riot website, essentially?
No, that isn't really the intent. We want to deliver an experience to our players who come and view esports on our site that's differentiated from the other big streaming sites that are out there. So we're really focused on making the experience great on our site. And then with the added benefits of you get benefits back in game. You know, you can buy these event passes that give you credit back in game and give you, digital items and unlocks back in game as a bonus for being on our platform. But really our focus is about how can we really make the experience great. And it's a very Riot-like thing to do. We typically look at game genres or other platforms and we say, how can we make that experience better for our players? And that's really where we focus at the end of the day.
Is there ever a world in the future where you guys look and you say, hey, we can just cut out these other platforms? Like why do you need YouTube or Twitch, for instance, if Riot can sort of run everything through this own site and have their own platform?
Yeah, we have a philosophy around being everywhere our players are. So that is not part of the plan that we pull our content back and it's exclusively on our platform. We will be on every platform we can be on that our players are on. It's fundamental to our beliefs.
So a lot of this, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is going to take a lot of engineering resources, right?
Yes,
you have to build the site, you have to do all this stuff. And it reminds me a little bit all the way back to the BAMTech deal, which never really materialized all those many years ago. Folks who are not familiar can do a Google search because we don't have time to go through it. But I think there is a sense from esports fans in some situations that Riot's engineering resources around esports have not always been there. You and I talked about how lolesports.com is not always the best experience for a lot of fans.
Yep.
And I think, you guys are talking even about doing sales around League of Legends products seemingly outside of the client, and people talk a lot about the League of Legends client.
Yep.
So I guess, are you ramping up the engineering side of esports a lot to be able to accomplish this stuff? What does this look like? Because right now I think a lot of people might look at the lolesports.com, for instance, and just say like, hey, can they even accomplish these goals given that in the past we haven't been able to really see a lot of this tech built out.
Yeah, no, look, we have 3 different teams now working on our watch platform. You haven't seen any of this work yet, by the way. We have an external developer that's helping us with it. We have our player platform team. They run all of the platform that our games use and we use for our watch platform. And then I have a digital team within my organization, and we've been growing that really aggressively over the past few years. So I would say all in, we have over 100 people working on this platform right now, and next year you will see some of the fruits of that labor. It's going to be awesome.
So the other thing, looking at that blog, is I feel like a lot of the examples are kind of around global events.
Yes.
Where this revenue and these revenue streams are coming in. How do you plan to also assist the regional side? Is it a situation where we should expect to see almost everything you're doing and that you've referenced from a global side also hit regions like LCS and LEC or VCT Americas, et cetera?
Yeah, totally. I think that's really where the big unlock is going to be. So we generally test things with our global international events because we get our biggest audience around those events. But like the virtual ticket that I talk about in the blog, that of course we want to take down into the regions. It's kind of like Pick'em. You know, Pick'em's been a really popular part of our international events. We have a version of Pick'em internally that works now weekly with our regions. We're going to roll that out very soon to regions. But yes, no, this will not just be reserved to international events. We want it to be in the regions. It's a big part of the value.
So shifting a little bit, just because while I am going to talk to Naz about some of the LCS stuff, I do think there are some high-level conversations to be had about LCS. We've had multiple LCS teams sell, right? Obviously, FlyQuest, now CLG, and the NRG situation. There are always ongoing rumors that other teams in the space are looking to sell. Is that a bad sign for the LCS? Is that a sign of concern for fans or people that are invested in it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're always concerned when we see teams leave, but I think when you look at, say, the LEC, there's over the past few years, there's been 3 new teams that have come into the LEC, and I think we do the best job we can in choosing who we're in partnership with, and I think the teams do the same in deciding to go into partnership with us. A lot of times your business goals just don't align at the end of the day, and you have some churn in teams. But look, I was really excited that NRG stepped in and they took CLG's slot. They're a great org. We know them really well from the Valorant process that we ran. We're excited to have them in the LCS. And I think with every team that may be contemplating going out, there's a bunch of teams in the wings who are excited about coming in. And at the end of the day, we want teams that are very aligned with us in generating fandom and doing all the marketing things to help us grow the sport and to building a sustainable business. And a lot of times it just takes a few cycles to land who your core teams are. And I think we're just in the middle of that. And it's being exacerbated by all these pressures where we are with the economy and worries around the economy. So yes, it's concerning, but on the other hand, I think there's a lot of excitement in some of the new orgs coming in.
There were reports and rumors that previously, I think around EG coming in, LCS slots were going for about 30 mil.
Yeah.
If some news came out, and I don't think it's been reported yet, what, for instance, the NRG CLG deal was, I think, kind of complicated, but let's say another team sold and they sold for 25 or 20. Is that something people should be alarmed by, or do you think that's just correcting to the right number? I mean, what is your sense around those types of values?
Again, I think any organization, they're going to have a different basis for how they value what they're buying, and we don't really control that. Obviously, where we sit, all we can do is really focus on how do we build an exciting business that somebody wants to invest in. And that was one of the big points of the blog, was I wanted to get the story out about how we're excited about the business of esports, and hopefully that drives some momentum with investors wanting to come back into the space.
So Nadeshot, who operates 100 Thieves, who has both a Valorant and a League of Legends team with you guys, he recently was quoted as saying on his podcast that he's worried about the future of League of Legends in North America, saying you pull 100 16-year-olds into games, I imagine maybe 5 of them are going home to play League of Legends after school. I guess I was just curious if you had any thoughts or information that kind of disputed that. I think there is a conversation that goes on about like, oh, the Zoomers are not playing League of Legends. Maybe they're playing Val instead or something. And I do think there is some concern about like, okay, you're gonna have people age out of League and not have people coming in. So I guess given he's part of the ownership group of your two major leagues, what do you think of that quote?
I won't comment on the quote specifically, but I'll say that Riot, we build multi-generational games. We build games that last for many, many generations, and we know gamers are fickle. And there will be new games that come out that are exciting. And one of the great things about League of Legends and Valorant, for that matter, is you can always come back. And we've seen ebbs and flows in our games based on what competitions in the market, and that's just a natural part of it. But we wholeheartedly believe that the future of MOBA is bright. We have some really exciting plans for League of Legends that we're going to communicate about over the next year or so that I think fans will be excited about. But in our eyes, the MOBA genre in League of Legends has never been as vibrant as it is. So we're excited about the future, and we're not worried about MOBAs. Obviously we are worried because we always want to be to have a game that's really resonant with our players, and we work very hard at that. But we think we have good ideas about the future of the genre in League.
And so you're not worried at all about a younger audience at all? There's no sign that younger audience is not latching onto League of Legends?
I mean, we try to provide experience for all players, including young players. And I think when you hear us over the next year talk about League of Legends and our plans for the future of League, you'll see how we're trying to inspire players of all ages.
Okay, so we talked the last time about scheduling. That was the major thing about the LCS. How satisfied are you with the results of the shift in day and time for the LCS?
The shift in day and time, I'm pretty satisfied. On a average minute audience basis, we're down about 10% from last year, which I don't like. But I think the show itself is in great shape right now. I really like the changes to the show. I'm watching more LCS than I ever have, which has been great. So I think if we keep focused on the product, the viewers will come. So the time slot, I don't think has been super impactful. I think if anything, maybe we should have been at 12 p.m. to get more European viewers for the LCS.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think it was good to give the LCS their own slot and separate out from the LEC, and the show was awesome.
But logically, if viewership is down and you feel like the show's in a really good place, shouldn't that denote that perhaps the only other change that has occurred, which is the schedule, might have been responsible for a viewership decrease?
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, we look at that. We haven't done the full analysis yet on the first split. That will definitely be a part of it. But we're going to keep focused on making the show super exciting, because I think if we make a great show, players will make time to watch it. And I feel like we're on a good track there.
Okay, let's say the show gets even better in summer.
Yes.
But viewership continues to be rough. At what point in time do you look at all the factors and say, okay, maybe it is the schedule?
Hey, Travis, I said this before. We will change the time if it's purely a time slot issue. Okay. We will change the time.
One of the ironies around the schedule stuff that occurred was, for LCS Finals, which was the weekend before last, there's been all this conversation around like, okay, we don't want overlap with LEC and LCS.
Yes.
And yet here we are, and we had the greatest amount of overlap ever with the LEC time and the LCS. I saw the post about LCS getting shifted 1 hour later from the intended start time for finals, which originally happened where I think it was said that finals and the shows in Raleigh were going to be starting I think at 3.
Yep.
Ended up starting at 4. LEC did not move at all during this time, which I think a lot of LCS fans were like, what the heck? Why do we have to move and adjust? And they won't change at all to accommodate the overlap thing. And then on Sunday for finals, LCS mysteriously shifted another 30 minutes as LEC was having pauses going on. So I guess, a lot of people looked at that and they said, okay, the whole mantra was no overlap, no schedule stuff. We're going to work on all this stuff. And then it felt like we saw that happen last week. I mean, the first game of the Golden Guardians FlyQuest match had pretty low viewership, while we saw pretty high viewership in LEC, and they're going head to head. So why is it that in a split where we're having so much focus on no overlap and scheduling and all that stuff, finals weekend for LCS looks like there's so much of a conflict?
Yeah, it was a mistake. Um, it was unfortunate, and it's also unfortunate that we did finals on Easter, which I don't think was optimal either. We had to pivot the LCS finals fairly late, and venues were, it was difficult to land a venue, so we got a little stuck in what weekend we could do finals on. But as far as the times go, it's just a miss, man. And I'm as frustrated as anybody about that.
Were there any conversations with LEC being like, hey, can you guys start 1 hour earlier if we're starting 1 hour later?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I wasn't part of those conversations. Not sure. Ask Nas.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Yeah, that's the pitch. I will. And if I have time, I'll play this clip of you sending it to her.
Good luck, Nas.
All right. In your blog post, you talk a little bit about how many teams are in the both VCT and all the Valorant leagues and all the League of Legends leagues. And you even talked a little bit, I think, in our interview at Chase at the end of last year around finals, around why it feels a little nicer in Val to have just less teams. Do you think that there are too many mouths to feed in League of Legends right now?
I think that's obvious. I think we built out a great ecosystem around League of Legends, but it was an ecosystem that was built out for scale and not necessarily for sustainable business. So yeah, I think the answer to that is definitively yes. Having 93 teams that we support is really hard, and the business hasn't evolved to be able to support that scale yet.
Yeah. Is there a world where if some of these teams are saying, hey, you know, this isn't working for us, or we want to get out or something like that, where Valorant or where Riot would look to buy their slots essentially and decrease the teams that are in the LCS? I think there's a lot of conversations around, would 8 teams be better than 10?
Yeah. We don't have any definitive plans around that, but obviously if slots become available, that will push that conversation, and we'll see where we land on that. I don't know if 8 is the right number of teams to have in the LCS, but I think generally we have too many teams around the world.
Okay. There was an interesting thing that occurred recently where a source had told me that the LCS teams had come to the League of Legends leadership and basically said, hey, we would like to, or they all had supposedly voted unanimously, these 10 teams, to request Riot remove the requirement to have challenger teams for summer of this year. Is that concerning at all? I mean, this is a situation where there's so much conversation around development of players in League of Legends in North America, trying to make sure you have North American players here. You have these teams that are trying to get out of supporting challenger. I don't know where your head is at on that, but I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, we have been working with teams around how can we help them manage their costs all up, and looking at the entire structure of our partnership. Where are areas in our partnership relationship that are particularly expensive to you, where you don't feel like you're getting the value? And I think that the Academy League is one of those areas where, you know, teams will spend between $500,000 to $1 million a year on their Academy League teams. And that's expensive, especially in these times where capital is hard to come by. So we're taking that request in stride. We support those requests where, listen, this would really help us in our business if you guys didn't require us to do this thing. And we'll come back to them, but we actively support conversations like that because, again, we want to build a sustainable business with our team. So if we're imposing things on them that aren't driving value and just driving costs, then we want to eliminate those.
But a development league is essential, essentially, for talent pipeline into the league. So if that's not providing value for the teams, I guess, how do you ensure that value is still provided to the league?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to look at other areas. Like we have this great ERL system in Europe that works really well for developing talent. We don't require teams to have a team in the ERLs, but they do because they believe in it and they believe they get value out of it. So I think we've got to look at trying, and that's part of the analysis of whether we keep Academy League teams is what do we do then here in North America to develop talent? And maybe we prop up some third-party operated leagues at that layer.
We had the departure of Jackie recently. She announced that for health reasons, she's going to be taking a step back and leaving Riot. how do you approach the hiring of another commissioner? And do you think that this role is going to be a commissioner? Is it going to be something different? How do you approach having that LCS leadership? Because I think it feels like there's a bit of a vacuum at the top these days, right? Obviously, Jackie was out for health reasons, and before her, I think there was a lot of confusion around who really was leading that at that level. So, for leading the league, what are your plans and how are you planning on approaching that?
Travis, we have the best talent in esports working here at Riot. We are very scaled as an organization. We've been growing since inception, really. So we have a lot of really seasoned executives sitting on the bench. There isn't a void of leadership. You and I talk a lot now. You talk to Nas a lot. We will open up a replacement for Jackie. We have a lot of great internal candidates, and we'll be fielding external candidates, but I can't imagine somebody externally, maybe this will happen, I could be wrong, will match up to the experience of some of the executives we already have within our esports org. So don't worry, and I wish Jackie the very best. I really did enjoy working with Jackie while she was here, but we have a lot of executives that can sit in that seat, and we'll do that quickly. If anything, this will put even more focus on the LCS. We all tend to rally around where we see a gap in resourcing or a need for leadership. We step in at the global level and with some of the other regions to help fill that. So we're fine.
What do you think that role needs, or what do you look for in that role?
Yeah, I mean, what I liked about Jackie was she had a good vision for the show and the product. I think that's really necessary for the role. And you also need somebody who's got a sensibility for the business, because so much of what the problems that we're going to be trying to solve over the next 2, 3, 4 years is going to be around the business and how we set up the business for sustainability. So those are the two things that I'll be looking for, is somebody with an ability to take creative risks, somebody with a sensibility for business as well.
Very good. Okay, well, I know we have limited time with you today, so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about all this stuff.
Of course.
For those that are, I guess, worried, or they think esports is dying or everything is doomed, do you have anything that you would say to that audience or that group of folks?
Hey, Riot is all in on esports. Esports is not doomed. In fact, we continue to grow the business year on year with all of our products, with League and Valorant. Watch how we evolve the business. It's going to happen over the next year. I lay out some of the things that we're working on in my blog, but you're going to see even more evidence of that as we get deeper into the year. And I'm hoping our next conversation, Travis, is around how we think about evolving the watch experience around esports, because we have some super exciting ideas around that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Anything that replaces allesports.com, I'm in favor. Again, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Travis.
For everyone else, if you had questions that you did not feel were answered here, please feel free to shoot me those in the comments or on Twitter, and we'll make sure that we get those when I chat with Nas in a couple of weeks. But again, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And for everyone else, MSI is coming up. That coverage will be right here on this channel. Please subscribe, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello. It's time for me to come clean. I know that this is going to surprise some of you, but this content's been sponsored by Alienware. And if you didn't know that, it's important you know that because of federal trade rules and regulations in the U.S. and abroad as well. Probably I have to disclose that this is sponsored by Alienware. So if you didn't know, it is. Which also means that they do a lot to make all this stuff happen. I'm recording this on a camera that they helped me purchase, and I'm paying the individual who's shooting this and editing this with Alienware funds. And anyway, the whole thing is I couldn't do this without them. I'm also waiting for Dokla at the moment. Where's Dokla? Anyway, shout out to Alienware. Please check them out. There's a link in the description below. We love Alienware.